Ashlynd, welcome to the Watch Us Thrive podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited because I know that we're about to get into a very juicy conversation.
Yes, honey, I am here for it. I don't know how me and you connected on Twitter. I think the algorithm was just like, you got a dope ass podcast. She got a dope ass podcast. So we're just going to bring them together. And I've been following you for a while. I've listened to your podcast that we're going to get into later. But I just love the energy that you bring. You're beautiful on the inside and the outside. And I'm just so excited to have an amazing goddess like yourself on my show. So before we even get started, I just want to give you your flowers and say thank you so much for coming on here because I know this conversation is going to be lit.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I feel the same way about you. You're beautiful inside and out. Your energy is on point, and I really feel like you're doing important work. So all the success to Watch Us Thrive podcast.
And you as well. Like I said before we started recording, everything you see in me, I see in you tenfold. And we out here just trying to make a change by using our voices. And I know you're killing it in the podcast game, but we'll get into that later. For anyone who's meeting you for the first time, I would love for you to introduce yourself to my audience in your own words. Let us know, who is Ashlynd?
Immediately, my mind wants to get into like all the roles that we play and my titles, right? Daughter, sister, friend, entrepreneur, whatever. But underneath all that, I would say at my core, I'm just someone who's deeply passionate about living life to the fullest. I'm deeply curious about what life has to offer, and I want to explore that. And I would say more than anything, I'm an activist for the potential that lies within each one of us. So like, I want my life to be a reminder that you're bigger than your current situation and you have the power to become the person that your soul meant for you to be. So more than anything of a title, I'm a soul.
Yes, you are. And I see you. And I love that you point out that you can create the life of your dreams. It's beautiful to manifest. It's beautiful to be like, I'm going to live this abundant life and say all these great affirmations. But at the end of the day, you got to make it happen, sis. You know what I'm saying? And I say that all the time on my show. Like, it's beautiful to dream big and think big and want all these goals. But what are you going to do to make it happen?
Right. Like, is your walk matching your talk? Because like you can manifest and wish, but there's a difference between wishful thinking and actually like having a plan.
Come on. She's already dropping some gems. So I already know this conversation is going to really get you all the way together from a place of love. So let's start off with getting to know you more on a personal level before I pull the gems out of you. I always start off with every guest who comes on to talk about what life looked like for you growing up for baby Ashlynd. I'd love for you to share moments that really stick out for you that really were pivotal during that time period, like childhood and adolescence. Anything that you're comfortable with sharing with my audience, tell us what life was like for you as a kid.
So I grew up in a super religious household. My parents are devout Jehovah's Witnesses. And so growing up, I was the equivalent of what you would call like a preacher's daughter. They used a different title, but essentially like it was that. And so in my childhood, I learned that it's not safe to be my true self. I have to hide because God is first. God is before everything. And that's what my parents did. My parents put God before my sister and I, everything. So even though my physical needs as a child, I was taken care of, I had food, clothes on my back, place to lay down, my emotional and my mental needs were neglected because I was always threatened with God's anger. Like, if you don't shape up, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, God's going to be mad at you, right? So I was shamed for wanting to have school friends because those people didn't serve God. Like, everything was a filter of God. So I was very sheltered, very miserable. I spent a lot of my teenage years wishing that I had different parents. But part of me was so desperate for their approval and their validation. So I grew people-pleasing tendencies. But it was kind of confusing because I also secretly hated my parents and I felt bad that they were my parents. But I was also confused because it's like, I'm thankful that they gave me life and that they sacrificed for me. So like living with those two, like, I love you, but I also kind of really hate you. And a pivotal moment for me was when I was 12. I decided that I was not going to live the life that my parents had planned out for me. I made a promise to myself at 12 that I was going to live life on my terms, no matter what that looked like. And really that promise was an invitation to myself to be who I am. And I think that was one of the most pivotal moments of my childhood.
I'm curious, at 12 years old, that's a very transformative time period for especially girls. I have a 13-year-old, she'll be 14 this year. So we're in that season of transitioning and her finding herself and wanting to be more independent. But I still look at her like she's my little baby, but I try to allow her to not necessarily have a voice because I think she's always had that growing up, but like just allow her to be who she wants to be, but also remind her like, you're not an adult yet, so pump the brakes a little bit. Like finding that balance in between. What was it for you at 12 that like you realize that's a really grown growth mindset to have at a young age? For you to realize that during that time period, what was it for you that was like, yo, I can't fucking do this anymore? And what came from that pivotal moment?
I would say, like, I remember back then, I would observe my dad, how he was at the church and how he was at home. Because he would be at church being like, oh, the fruit of the Spirit, Matthew 15, something, something, whatever, quoting all these Bible verses.
Right.
But at home, he would be like yelling at the top of his lungs, getting super red, super angry. He had temper tantrums. He was a narcissist. And so I was able to witness what a big difference it was between when he was talking about the Bible and when he was not on that stage. You know what I mean? And I would say from that pivotal moment, the result was I gave myself the permission slip. And that was my first experience of me trusting myself instead of being told, well, I don't know anything. I'm too young. I can't really be feeling the way I'm feeling because I don't know what life is about. And it's like, no, I can trust how I'm feeling. I'm trusting what I'm observing. And this is what I'm going to do for myself.
That's really interesting. During that like transitional period for you, was there pushback from your family and how did you work through that?
When I made the decision that I wasn't going to live my adult life in that way, I lived a double life for 6 years until I turned 18. And so my parents had no idea that I was skipping class and going and doing little hood rat things with my hood rat friends, and that's kind of like, I created this persona to feel safe. And when it finally came out, I was like 17 and a half. And I was like, you know what? I'm so tired of lying. I'm tired of lying to y'all. I'm tired of lying to myself. It doesn't feel good to live this way. So that's when the cat came out the bag. Everybody in the family knew my business. And there was that pushback. I remember when my parents first found out, my dad straight up told me, you're Satan's child. We're done with you. So they was done. And back then I didn't even think to be afraid. I was just so excited at the prospect of my freedom. I was
to
like,
be free. Okay. Yeah. Finally, like you broke free from the shackles of life, of living underneath the roof of these people that like, even though you're family, we are not one and the same. Like I can't relate to you. And I just want to commend you for your bravery. Thank you for sharing that because that could be very traumatizing. I'm sure it was traumatizing for you to go through that and for you to talk about it so openly. I'm sure a listener, someone is going to relate to this conversation. So I appreciate you for painting the picture for us. Now, I know in your application that you wrote, you were disowned 3 days before your 18th birthday. And then a lot of other things happen in your adulthood. And I would love for you to talk about some of those pivotal moments again, but in your adult life prior to you being on this personal development journey.
I would say because of that experience of being disowned, I kind of really internalized that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, people will leave you, right? So I was walking around with that false belief. And so for a lot of my early 20s, I was in performance mode. I was like, okay, well, let me do this perfectly to be the best, be number one, so y'all could love me. And being in performance mode bled into how I did business, how I climbed the corporate ladder, my relationships. Like I was people pleasing for validation. Instead of seeking it from my parents, I just switched who I pleased. And so I was looking for that kudos, for that recognition from my clients, from my bosses, from social media. I didn't realize at the time, but it's such a dishonor to myself, my skills, my talents, when I'm more worried about you than me. And so it wasn't until I got in a relationship with a fuck ass. It usually takes one of those to get you.
You got to say it twice, not once, but twice.
It was Cajun spiced fuckery. Okay. Yes. That's what it was. Yeah.
I understand you, sis. I get it.
After that relationship, I remember crying to myself and saying, why can't anyone love me? Why can't I be loved? I'm doing all these things. I'm killing myself trying to please you. and y'all still don't love me. And that started my personal development journey. That's when I finally realized, like, none of these motherfuckers is gonna love you until you love yourself
Come
first.
on,
You feel me?
girl. Yes, you are preaching. I just thank you so much for sharing that, because same thing with me. I've only been on my personal development journey since early 2021. So we're going on 2 years. Same for me. Like, I was in a really toxic, abusive relationship. The night that my life was almost taken from me, that was my pivotal moment, like my aha moment. Like, Leanne, what's going on? God was trying to tell me time and time again, with each relationship or situationship or casual fling, whatever the fuck it was, you are attracting this toxicity in your life. Not only in relationships, but like being at shitty jobs that I was overworked and underpaid, having a shitty relationship with my daughter because I was so miserable. It was just manifesting into every aspect of my life. And I needed that hard reset. I needed it for me personally to be something really dramatic that woke me the fuck up. For all of my 20s and the beginning of my 30s, I'm going to be 35 this year. So I think I was 33, 32 or 33. It was just a toxic cycle of bullshit over and over and over. And then me feeling sorry for myself and feeling like, oh my God, why do I see everyone around me killing it, doing great, and I'm just like barely making it by? You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yes.
just like something needed to happen. Fucking taking accountability can change your life. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
you not saying that like I deserve to be beat or I deserve to have a knife to my neck or any of those things. I didn't deserve that. There was a common denominator in my circle, in my life altogether, and it was me. And the only person who could make that shift and start to do the work to go in a direction that's going to allow me to elevate is me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So many gems right there. But before I even get into it, like, I want to give you your flowers because at that moment, you had the option to either be a victim and feel sorry for yourself. And that could have really been the story that you
Oh,
chose
girl.
to live in.
I was, though. It wasn't like this in the beginning. I was absolutely, woe is me. Oh my God, another. You can't stay in that mindset for too long because you'll just continue to perpetuate the toxicity.
Exactly. And it gets to a point where you got to kind of sit back and realize, like, well, what message am I sending to other people? Because I'm living this way. Love it.
I already knew this conversation was going to be fucking amazing. Thank you so much for, allowing me to be seen and vice versa. Thank you for your vulnerability. I just love having people like you on the show to let the listeners know, like, yo, we fucking get it because we've been through it too. Let's talk about your personal development journey and what that looked like. I also would love for you to talk about your podcast, mindFLOWERS. Y'all got to check it out. We're going to link it in the show notes. It's fucking phenomenal. So I would love for you to, take us on how it started, your personal development, your podcast, and what is your purpose behind your show?
Right after that relationship had ended and I started asking myself, well, why can't I love myself? And then it clicked like, okay, girls, it's about self-love. That was the start of the personal journey. And then when I started my first business, that deepened the journey. I always say we go into business thinking that we're really serving others, but you're really the one who's getting served because you learn so much about yourself. You learn things about yourself that you could be in therapy for years and years and years, and then you hit this obstacle. So it's kind of like therapy times 10, on
Yes.
steroids.
Absolutely. Being an entrepreneur is not for the weak.
At all. And so my first business as a fashion stylist, I was doing that for about 3 years and it just got old. I was like, I don't want to be 40 in the mall trying to shop for people. Like, I'm cool. I'm cool. So mindFLOWERS originally started under the name How to Be a Baddie. So it was like a personal development podcast for bad bitches. And the original tagline was, there's more to being bad than looking good. And so like, I wanted to be able to use that podcast as a way to teach myself before really anyone else, And the inspiration was because I spent a lot of experiences in corporate America being overly sexualized. Oh, well, you have curves. You can't wear that. Da 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 da. You're unprofessional. Or I would get prejudged for being stupid. I remember one time I used to be a manager at Wells Fargo, and I would have customers coming in, males, being, who let you be a manager? Oh, what do you have to do to be a manager? And so my podcast originally was kind of like a fuck you to all you people. Like, yeah, I look good and I'm actually smart.
Yes. Look at me now, bitch.
Right. But it grew from there. And after like 5 name changes, we're finally at mindFLOWERS. And I love the title. So we're going to stay with that. We're going to rock with that.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. And I think it's really important for people who are trying to create a platform by using their voice that you're doing it from a place that first starts within you. You're not just trying to help other people or serve other people, or you're trying to do it just for the money, because that's how success is very short lived. You have to do it from a place of purpose and passion. And the same for me in this podcast and this brand that I'm building up. Originally, it started with me sharing my story of toxic relationships and domestic violence and all of that. And now it's growing into such a beautiful platform where I'm able to have people come on like you who can also share their life experiences. And again, just to let people know, like, you are not alone in whatever situations it is that you're going through, whatever life experiences. I truly believe that we all have a purpose in life and it's up to us to find it. And I think it's our responsibility to create these type of spaces where people like me and you can come on to show ourselves off to the world and let them know we're still trying to figure it out day by day. Like, it's not fucking rainbows and butterflies every day. There's some days that I'm like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. Like, I'm tired. Is anyone listening? But then it's like you get the feedback and you get the validation and you get that within yourself as well as you continue to show up with purpose. So I think for anyone listening, make sure whatever it is that you want to do in life, like, do it from your core being. Don't do it for some superficial bullshit that doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Exactly. Because it's going to be a temporary high.
And we know what happens with that, right?
Right.
And I love your cover art. I'm so obsessed with it. When I saw that, I was like, oh, what's this? I got to listen. And then mindFLOWERS, like, how did you think of that name?
Girl, I was high. I was smoking.
I love it. I love it. Yo, I'm telling you.
So if you be smoking, you my kind of people. So
Yes.
you might like it.
The creativity definitely flourishes when you are under the influence, but do it safely, y'all. Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, since we're talking about your podcast, there's this one episode that I definitely fucking fell in love with when I listened to it. I read it on your website. Shout out to your website. It's beautiful. I love it so much. And it was titled Do Not Disturb Mode, Updating Your Spiritual Wellness Settings. First of all, your motherfucking creativity, girl, and your wordplay, it's like, yo, she's so good at what she does.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And there was something that you wrote on your blog, and I want to read it verbatim so I don't fuck it up, and then we're going to jump into it. So you said, when we put our lives in do not disturb mode, we invest time and attention to our most valuable asset, ourselves. Doing so allows you to 1, examine and shed practices that have gone stale, 2, adopt new mindsets and ways of being that reflect your heart's truth, and 3, make different decisions about who you really are and what you really need. I'm gonna need for you to give us a whole bunch of gems around that and why it's important for us, especially women and women of color, to prioritize healthy boundaries on our personal development journey. Let's start off with that first.
Boundaries are important because that lets us know where you end and I begin. That separation where I can clearly identify, hey, this is how I function best. If you want to come into my world, this is what has to happen so we can interact and relate to each other in the healthiest ways for both you and me. There's an ebb and flow with the personal journey. It does get messy. It's always messy.
Always, girl.
Always. But the boundaries give us protection so we can grow in peace. And I think especially as women of color, we don't have peace. So it's like boundaries helps us give that peace to ourselves while also not interfering on anybody else's journey.
And a part 2 to that whole conversation that I really wanted to highlight, in your opinion, a lot of times we go into this self-isolation mode, especially when we're on these personal development journeys. And there's a difference. And I want to know, how can we decipher between healthy isolation for a period or a season in our lives compared to being alone all the time out of fear for people not to hurt us or to take advantage of us and all those things? How can we differentiate the two?
I love this question. This is these questions. Hold up. Gross.
It's the Virgo in me, sis.
I've experienced both. I've experienced a healthy desire for healthy isolation and also kind of like, don't be around me because I think the best way to decipher between is how are your thoughts making you feel when you're having them? Your body is going to let you know. So if you're craving a healthy isolation, your body is going to guide you to take a rest. Hey, take a nap, take it slow. Life is going to ask you to, hey, let's slow down, let's chill, let's just be for a minute. If it's fear of letting people in my experience, it's very much anxiety. It's giving tightness, constriction, right? I'm holding tension, I'm clenching my jaw. Your body speaks so very clearly. If you're confused by all the thoughts in your head, tune into your body. Your body's going to tell you, okay, this is a healthy rest or I'm fearful.
No, I agree 100%. The way that you show up in the world, like your body will tell you before your mind does. 1000% like that. Especially us women, that female intuition, we got to listen to that a lot more than we do. It definitely saved me in my last relationship. Thank God I listened to that, and thank God for God and my angels because they definitely saved me that night. But you have to listen to how your body is responding to whatever situation, whether it's positive or negative. Curious to know, being on your personal development journey, what have been some tools or resources that really helped you grow that you would share with someone who's toying with the idea of really starting off their journey, but they have no clue how to start?
I would say definitely the Chakra app. If you're just getting started and you're like, hey, I don't know nothing about meditation, I don't know nothing about just really kind of sitting myself and asking questions, the Chakra app is like a nice little introduction. But I would say even before any sort of outside tool, making a habit of questioning yourself, giving yourself the time, giving yourself timeouts. I love giving myself little timeouts.
Yes.
Me sitting with my tea and just getting used to being in the habit of being by myself. You know, what are my thoughts when nothing's happening, when nothing's distracting me? Even 5 minutes a day, that's a great introduction to personal development.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I love me some guided meditation. I've tried doing it on my own and I'm not that developed yet that I can like be in the moment. Like I start to wander and I start to focus on other things. So guided meditation is definitely super beneficial. And yeah, I mean, there's so many resources out there. I love journaling too. I think journaling is so pivotal in my own journey, not just writing it out, but speaking out my thoughts. That's why I have a podcast, right? Because I like to fucking talk a lot. So yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that you can start your journey, but I think what's most important is not trying to do everything at once, because you can definitely overwhelm yourself and you'll be like, okay, what the fuck do I do next? And it can get to the point that it's like, I don't even want to fucking do this anymore because it's too much.
One thing that came up when you were talking about the whole meditation, the guided meditations, if you're just getting started and you find that your mind is wandering a lot, don't beat yourself up because that's what minds do. Minds think, okay? I'm not going to punish myself for my mind doing what it does. So be gentle with yourself when you're starting this journey.
Absolutely. I always tell myself, get back to focusing on the breath, like focus on your stomach going up and down, and that grounds me again. So thank you for sharing that. What would you say is something you've learned about yourself in the past year? What did 2022 teach you?
2022 came from my edges. I barely came out alive. Okay, my hairline.
I think that was the common theme for a lot of people in 2022 because it's like, what the fuck?
Right? But you know what? Even though it was a lot of mess, I'm so very thankful because I realized top 3 lessons, because there's so many, but top 3, I realized the value of accountability with myself first and then with other people, and how accountability creates intimacy in our relationships, right? I learned not to put people you admire on a pedestal.
Girl.
Don't meet.
Can you say that again? I think it went over their head. Please fucking say that again.
Do not put the people you admire on a pedestal because they be fucking up too.
Okay. Wait, do you have some tea to spill? You ain't got to say names, but what happened?
There is this one woman, it was kind of like a mentorship, and I definitely put her on a pedestal. I was like, oh, she's so much smarter than me. She's so much wiser than me. She invited me to do some freelance stuff for her and her company, and I was seeing how she operated. Okay, long story short, okay, don't
Yes.
be giving all these kudos and whatever stars, 5 gold stars to people unless you really, really know them. You know what I mean? Don't be, nah.
Absolutely. I mean, especially with how social media is and how fucking curated people can be, and they just love to just show the highlight, edited, filtered version. But then when you really get on that person level, it's like, ew, like you a little cringe, sis or bro.
Right? I thought you was wise.
Right? Like, I could do this better than you.
And I also learned, most importantly, get that contract. If you go into whatever business relationship with somebody, especially your friends,
Mm.
get that contract in play.
Okay. I watch way too many episodes of Judge Judy. And if it's not in written fucking form, it's like it never happened. Okay. And it don't need to be this notarized letter from the fucking Congress or whatever the fuck. Like, it could be a text message. It could be an email thread. Have that shit in writing. Listen, I'm a Virgo. Okay. So I keep motherfucking receipts. Okay. I do not delete text threads because if you try some bullshit, I'm gonna pull it up and be like, you said it at this date, at this time. Don't fucking play yourself.
I love that. Yes, yes. I got to keep my receipts.
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to business, like, please, y'all, especially if you're like someone who gives a service, please require a fucking non-refundable deposit, okay? Half up front or 20%, whatever the fuck you want to do. There's been so many times when I've had previous businesses that fell through that I would just not require that deposit. And then the person would never show up. Take care of yourself.
And you understand why you do it because it's like, oh, I'm trying to be nice or I don't want to create any sort of tension. But when you do that, when you operate in that way, what you're saying is, I'm not really caring about being nice to myself.
It's all about like this self-worth and this value and I deserve and my price is my motherfucking price and that's it. Whether you're a family or a stranger, you're gonna pay it or not.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of gems coming out of this episode. I love it. All right. So I say it on my show all the time. Some days are bad bitch days and other days are sad girl days. And being on this personal development journey, there's, like you said, so many ebbs and flows. There's so many moments that I'm struggling through it. And, it's very cliche that people say healing is never linear, but it's fucking true. So I want to know on your own journey, how do you navigate those sad girl days in a way that's beneficial to you and your growth and your healing?
I hold myself. I let myself be my inner child on those sad girl days, giving myself the grace to, hey, whatever I'm feeling in that moment, it's okay. I'm going to be compassionate with myself. And I also like to remind myself that my feelings are valid. They're my teachers, but they're not facts. Okay. So we can feel down in the dumps, but we're not going to stay down in the dumps for too long. All right. Because my feelings are just giving me notifications to check in with myself. Right. But they're not the facts of the situation. So, like, don't really stick to those stories. Don't listen to that inner critic or to that mean girl in your head for too long. You can acknowledge it, but don't identify with it,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I had an IG live a few weeks ago with someone who was on my show as well. And we were talking about our inner critic. And the way that I picture my inner critic is a version of Leanne who's coming from a place of love, but it's like having that overbearing mother figure in your life that's like, I just want to protect you. I just want to keep you safe, but it's like you're fucking smothering me at the same time. So I think having that mindset shift of like understanding when she's coming up, it's not because she's trying to hurt me, she's trying to help me, but she's doing it a little too much. And I got to check her and be like, listen, sis, I see you right here. I know why you're here, but I got this.
Mm-hmm. We're going to reframe.
Right. That comes with being on the journey because I definitely did not think that way before, but it comes being on this ghetto ass healing journey. Okay.
Who you telling?
I know you feel me, sis. This isn't a question that I have, but it just popped up in my brain. I do a word of the year. I don't know if that's the type of person that you are, but I would love to know, what is your word for 2023?
Ease. 2022 was so many like ups and downs. I told you I had my edges snatched. Okay, I ain't got no edges no more. I'm regrowing. So 2023 is all about ease, and it's coming from a mindset of how can I make my circumstances one of flourishing, one where like no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay with this because I'm okay. Just really learning to be soft.
Yes. Hashtag soft girl life. I'm so here for that because I've been in fucking survival mode for so long. I just want to chill. I just want peace and relaxation in my life and no dusty ass sun stressing me out.
I totally feel you. Yes.
Okay.
And I think kind of we have this common misconception that you can only heal unless you're struggling and you're answering the hard questions. But no, I want to heal through joy. I want to heal through peace. Okay.
Come on, she's speaking my language, y'all. That's why I knew I wanted her on my show because she just fucking gets it. Let me ask you 2 questions. Part 1, what would you say is your superpower? And then part 2, what is something about yourself that still needs some work?
Okay, so people tell me I have a way with words.
Yes, you do. I mean, hello, mindFLOWERS.
I'm able to talk about like heavy or complex subjects in a way that's like to the point. It's concise and makes people think. But on the other hand, on the other side of that same coin, your girl is blunt. I'm concise. I'm straight to the point.
Yes.
And sometimes that does come off offensive. And I'm so aware. Like I could be in a conversation with one like, oh yeah, it sounds like you have some major trauma that you're avoiding because you don't want to face yourself. What's up with that? And here I'm thinking like, oh, I'm just stating the facts. Like you're obviously traumatized, boo. And they're getting offended.
Right. But it's coming from a place of love because I see you, sis.
Yeah. And I'm not judging you. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like we get offended when we feel like we're being judged or made wrong. And it's like, I'm not trying to make you wrong. I'm just seeing something because I've been through it. I've lived through it.
I'm just trying to tell you about yourself in the most loving way possible. And sometimes you need that. Like, you need that type of person in your life who's going to check you when you need to be checked, but not in a way that it's like malicious or coming from a place of like, you ain't shit.
Yeah.
What's your zodiac sign?
Girl, I'm a Taurus.
Oh, yes. I could feel the Taurus energy. My sister's a Taurus too. What's your big 3?
Okay, so Taurus sun, Pisces moon, and Sagittarius rising. So that's where I get the little flavor for Sagittarius.
She's a little spicy. I'm here for it. Yeah, I'm a Virgo sun, Aquarius moon, and Scorpio rising.
Ooh, okay. I love that. Okay, earth, air, and water.
Okay. I'm a lot. Okay. That's probably why I've been single for almost 2 years because I'm a lot. But I know my worth. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So your word of the year is for 2023 is ease. What is a fear that you want to overcome in 2023?
To be honest, with my experiences in the past, I've followed my heart and then suffered financially for it. So sometimes I am afraid to trust myself, even though I know that trusting yourself is like the best decision you can do. Sometimes I'll be a little bit afraid.
Of course.
And one thing that's kind of been helping me overcome that is like I'm starting to view life as one big classroom. And when I fail, it's just the tuition that I'm paying for the school of life. That's all. So like when you fail, it doesn't mean anything other than that's just the cost of living. You know what I'm saying? And realizing that I'm slowly trying to program into my nervous system that I'm always safe and I can trust myself.
Your wordplay game is like 10 out of fucking 10, sis. Highly recommend. Do you have like a book or something? You got to write a book.
You know, I'm going to get my writing chops in order.
We're putting it out there, okay, sis? Because this is just like the tip of the iceberg of the amount of gems that you have in you. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much about yourself. I'm loving this conversation, but we're not done yet. Have a few more questions. So you're on the Watch Us Thrive podcast. So tell me your definition of thriving.
To me, thriving is having options. It's having that freedom, that time freedom, that creative freedom, that financial freedom. But I'd also say thriving is really living heart first, you know, going on that healing journey and understanding yourself, your past traumas, and then choosing to be better than those old stories. I can't thrive until I give my permission self to show up as who I really am.
Another one and another one and another one. It makes so much sense. Honestly, like we said in the beginning of this episode, like you can manifest all you want in whatever you want your life to look like, but you have to make it happen. And you need to understand that it's not like this overnight thing that it's just going to happen. Your Prince Charming isn't going to just break into your house and tell you that he's going to marry you. You're not going to have this billion-dollar business if you're not actively showing up and putting in the work and letting people know what the fuck it is that you got going on. Like, it's beautiful to dream big, but the only person who can really make it happen is you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come on. I mean, I can talk to you all fucking day.
Seriously, though.
Okay, a couple more questions. Go back to baby Ashlynd, whatever age pops up for you. Being the beautiful woman that you are today, what is a piece of advice that you would tell her?
You feel that spark for a reason. That spark inside of you is how you know you're alive.
Mm.
Say yes to that spark. Say yes to life. And the more you say yes to life, the more life is going to turn around and say yes to you, boo.
Just give her like the biggest hug and tell her that you love her.
Love you so much.
She's making me emotional, y'all. Stop it. Okay, final question before we can find out how we can follow you and listen to you and all that. In the far future, when you're no longer on this living earth, someone has to sit down and write about Ashlynd. What do you want them to say?
I would want them to describe me as someone who made other people feel like the most important person in the room, someone who built people up, someone who was generous and wise and really just poured into people. Because I know people ain't going to remember my titles or accomplishments or whatever, but I want them to remember the heart to heart moments.
I know they would say so much more than that because you're out here killing it. You're out here showing up. You are out here serving a community that really needs people who look like you, talk like you, and are really just creating change. This conversation has been so fucking healing for me. And I hope it's been the same for you and for our listeners. And I know they're going to want to learn more about you, listen to your podcast, follow your journey online. So plug it in and let them know, what are you working on? How can we follow you?
So the mindFLOWERS podcast is in a season of refinement because so is your girl, just refining. I want to get into live events. So that's kind of what I'm working on behind the scenes. But you can find me on Twitter, mindFLOWERS888, or my website, mindFLOWERS, no vowels, mindflowers.me. We just kicking it flowing, being at ease.
I'm here for it, girl. When you do a live event, where are you based out of?
So I'm from Vegas.
Oh, girl, I've never been to Vegas.
Okay.
I need the invite. I need the invite. Okay, sis. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I can't wait to continue watching you thrive and show up for this community. There's so much abundance coming your way, and I can't wait to witness it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I received that, and I want to reciprocate the same energy, the same love, the same beauty to you. Like you said, we see each other, so
Yes.
I'm rooting for you. I'll see you at the top. And don't ever forget the work that you're doing is really changing lives. So I want to give you your flowers and your kudos. Like, you doing the damn thing.
Girl, we are doing the damn thing, okay?
Amen and all.
Thank you, my love.